Hey there, We Can't Wrestle podcast listeners. If you haven't noticed, we have switched our server to Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So go ahead, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Highly recommended by me and everybody else here at the We Can't Wrestle podcast. Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. We are back in the saddle, and Nate and Aaron are here with you. And this week's show is going to have 3 different lists we're going to discuss. We're going to discuss who we think are 5 guys that were better outside of WWE/WWF, had the better parts of their career outside that company. We're going to discuss our favorite 5 great feel-good moments in wrestling history and our 5 favorite TV shows. So, Aaron, what's going on?
Well, somebody else is back in the saddle, and that's Bruce Pritchard.
Yes, apparently he is. Bruce Pritchard back with the WWE.
So next month, y'all can get on Stitcher and get ready to listen to the new Something to Wrestle with, Freddie Prinze Jr. How's it going, Freddie?
Chat me up, Freddie.
Chat me up, Freddie.
We know Freddie Prinze don't need Blue Chew. But if you need Blue Chew... Yeah.
On another thread, another wrestling Facebook page, somebody put like they were looking for a new show, and this guy said you should watch Deadwood, and I made that joke.
Blue Chew.
Conrad says, "Hey, it's Conrad. If you got Deadwood, head on over to BlueChew.com right now."
And if you want to really feel awkward, listen to the Eric Bischoff Blue Chew segments.
Yeah.
You know, I was giving my wife anal this morning.
Yeah, I was running it up, blowing them guts out. It's good stuff.
He always starts with like, I was just having my morning coffee. Then I brought her some coffee, and before I knew it, I was in the butt. Oh shit. Well,
I'm back.
And also, speaking of classic wrestling, what's your opinion, real quick, we'll get this out of the way too, what's your opinion of the entire stable of DX going into the Hall of Fame?
I'm okay with it.
It's a good way to sneak Chyna in.
Yeah.
I think, you know, which I mean, I don't understand why what she did outside WWE is such a big fucking deal anyway, but it's a good way to sneak her into the Hall of Fame without having to, I guess.
I mean, Sunny made porn and they left her in.
Yeah. And she went to jail again apparently yesterday.
Yeah.
But I think
it's like when everybody complained that like 2014 when everybody's complaining about Abdullah the Butcher being in, is he gave people hepatitis. You know?
Yeah.
It's like so did Sunny. She's still in there.
So did almost Bob Orton Jr.
And possibly Ric Flair.
Ric Flair. Ric Flair turned 70 this week.
Yes, he did.
And David Arquette gave him a weird-looking marionette or whatever.
It's creepy.
Did you see? I commented on that picture on one of the wrestling. Did you see what I commented?
No.
It was like if Ric Flair was in DC Follies. That's what it looked like to me.
I said, kill it with fucking fire.
It was pretty creepy.
And then I was on this other, I joined this other wrestling Facebook page for a minute, and I made a comment on something, and the guy was like, "Shut up, you mark." I was like, "Oh, you're a wrestler?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Well, then your name's Mark too."
And he probably didn't even get it.
No. So I quit the group. Hate when other fans call other fans marks. It's like, we're all marks, you moron.
It's true.
And there's also this contingency of people, and you know me, I'm not like, I don't watch Raw every week. I'm critical sometimes of the WWE, and but it goes all like right now. It's turning into this thing that was like almost like in the '80s, where if it's outside of the WWE, oh, it's great, but if it's in the WWE, it's terrible.
Yep.
And I think that's the wrong when you listen to people talking about old wrestling, they're the same way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this, and this was in Japan, and it was amazing, and it was totally better than what the WWF was doing. It's like, no, it was different. It might not be. The reason that I'm bringing this up is, and then we could go on to the top five.
But you saying that, I'm gonna slaughter a sacred cow. Go ahead with your thought, but you saying that makes me. Go ahead.
I was listening to this podcast, and these two guys were talking about like greatest matches and this, that, and the other thing. And one guy said that was it wasn't the greatest match on his list, but they were talking about the Macho Man Randy Savage and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
And for one, the guy said, well, this isn't good, as great as people say, because every minute of it was choreographed. It's like, well, heaven forbid you want to go out there and,
put on a good show for these people.
The other guy said, this was a good match, but I think it would have been much better if it was in the NWA.
What?
It would have been the same match.
Actually, and it would have been in a darker, dingier arena, fuck-ass.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it would have been much better. I think this feud and match would have been much better if it was in the NWA. And I'm an NWA fan. You know that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I was about to say was, sometimes people praise things like... Okay, I'm going to slaughter a sacred cow here, I think, for some of the old school wrestling fans. I'm a Aaron, those of you that don't know, when we were kids, Aaron was a much bigger NWA WCW mark than I was. I like NWA WCW, but I was always more a WWF guy, right?
Yes.
And I was always a Memphis guy. I like Memphis. Now, what I will say is this... a promotion that gets so much praise all the time from a lot of people and is super overrated in my opinion, especially as I watch it back now, is World Class Championship Wrestling. World Class Championship Wrestling is overrated, and here's why. If you actually watch World Class Championship Wrestling continuously, like episode to episode, World Class Championship Wrestling is actually kind of boring. The Von Erichs feuded with the Freebirds for, it seemed like, an entire presidential administration. Like, you would have, like, the main event one week would be Kerry versus Gordy, and then the next week it'd be Kerry versus Hayes, and then the next week it'd be some six-man with the Freebirds and the Von Erichs, and then next week, it's the Freebirds and the Von Erichs again. And, I mean, they do the same matches over and over and over again. Feuds, and not that feuds need to be quick. That's not what I'm saying. But, people criticize WWE now for having main event. Like, they have, you never, nothing on a pay-per-view feels special because you do the big matches every week and the guys are on every week. If you watch World Class Championship Wrestling, it was like the Von Erichs fighting the Freebirds every week, and then they try to build some big show where it was the Von Erichs versus the Freebirds. Like, it's really actually quite boring. And it's not that it all sucks. That's not what I'm saying. But I think that promotion's, like, way overrated.
Yeah. It'd probably be like, the second to last one that if I was like, I'm going to watch the entire run of a company, that would be second to last.
Yeah, because, I mean, you watch a few episodes and you pretty much get the gist. I mean, it's...
The last would be AWA.
Oh, oof. Yeah, AWA is pretty fucking boring.
They had good promos and stuff, but...
Yeah, and some really good matches. But, like what Blassie say, you had to go through all the boring shit.
Yeah, he said Lou Thez was exciting, but he said everybody talks about how great Lou Thez was, but nobody talks about all the boring shit you had to sit through to get to him.
That's how I'd feel about like Henning and Bockwinkel,
Yeah,
Henning and Bockwinkel's great, but look at all the shit I had to sit through to get to it. This Colonel De Beers guy, what? What is this?
He's trash.
Against Derek Dukes? What? All right, anyway. I guess we'll go on with our first list here.
Okay.
5 guys that were better outside WWE. I'll let you
go back and forth, or
Yeah.
are you going to do yours and I'll do mine?
No, we'll go back and forth, and you can go first, actually.
All right. No particular order, except the last one I'm going to talk about. So the first name or names, I guess you could say names on my list would be the Steiner brothers.
I'll agree with that one. Most definitely.
I mean, the Steiner brothers were all right in the WWF, but I just and some of these is going to be like, I know they didn't have very long of a run in the WWF, obviously, but I just think that WCW as a whole knew how to promote those guys and push those guys better than what
they did, and they're one of, and the reason you know that is because there's certain wrestlers, when you think of them, you think of a certain promotion. Yeah. And when I think of the Steiner brothers, I think of early 90s WCW.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you on that one.
And in a lot of ways, other than a few matches that they had, Vince in the WWF slowed them down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what the Steiner brothers were, in my opinion, made to be fast, high impact.
My favorite
wrestling, you know what I mean?
My favorite Steiner brothers in the WWF match is their match against the Beverly Brothers at Royal Rumble 93.
That's a good match. Mine is their match with the Head Shrinkers at WrestleMania 9.
Yeah,
those were just beating the fuck out of each
other. They
other.
just beat the shit out of each other.
Afa even cracks the fuck out of Scotty with that kendo stick, or they call bamboo stick or whatever. Yeah. But that's my favorite Steiner Brothers match in the WWF. And the Beverly Brothers are an underrated tag team.
Yes.
Talked about that plenty of times. Mike, it's Mark.
But yeah, I definitely agree on the Steiner brothers. First guy on my list, I enjoyed him much more. I enjoyed the way he was booked and used much more in WCW than the WWE, and that was Rey Mysterio Jr.
All right.
I think that in WCW, with who he is and what he is, Rey Mysterio could just be Rey Mysterio, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And in the WWE, he was either booked as just a nice sympathy character, or they tried to book him with people for his size and stuff he probably shouldn't have even been in the ring with. And as his career rode on, it almost seemed like, if you notice, like probably after his title run in 2006, from like 2007 to 2010, it just kind of felt like Ray gave up.
Well, I think for one, I think he was. Like we just talked about Scott Steiner. Scott Steiner is the tale of two Scotties. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Scott Steiner pre 1998, and then there's Scott Steiner after 1998, and I know it's not the same thing, but I think Ray is the tale of two Rays. He went to WWF, and it was he got there and he worked a different. He was a bit heavier, he's getting a little older, and I think like the same thing I just said about the Steiners was when he got there, it wasn't. They didn't want their cruiserweights and their lightweights to go out there and just have the. And I'm not saying it's better, and I'm not saying it's worse, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but they didn't want the car crash. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and the way the WWE books wrestling, the way Vince McMahon books a wrestling card, he doesn't. The goal is never for not anything to ever be to outshine the main event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you would, even the cruiserweights in the WWE would have to, they could have a great cruiserweight match, but don't you be outshining, Triple H and Randy Orton or whatever. Whereas in WCW, the way they booked a show, it was like 5 people booked the show, So yeah. The card didn't stack well. I mean, you can look at that from the fact that when you watch a 90s WCW pay-per-view, you're like jacked through the whole thing until you get to the main events.
Yeah,
Yeah, who gives a shit? We gave you Guerrero and Mysterio. You could fucking watch Hogan and Piper suck wind for 15 minutes. So anyway, there it is, Rey Mysterio. Who's next?
This is one that I don't know if you're going to agree with or not. It would be Meng. I liked Meng and Meng Haku, whatever you want to call him. I enjoyed him more in WCW than I did in the WWF. For the similar reason of the reason that I like the Steiner brothers better. When Haku was in the WWF, and even when he was in WCW, he was a, I don't want to say jobber, but he was like, you know, the guy that was going to go out there and have a good match with Hogan, but he wasn't going to win the belt. He was going to have a good match, as good of a match as he could have with the Ultimate Warrior, but he wasn't going to win the belt.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but when he got to WCW, he was like, WCW accentuated how dangerous he actually was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He might not win the match, but he usually didn't win because he got disqualified or somebody busted a chair over his head or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was with Barbarian, they were like probably in the top 5 of my favorite tag teams of the 90s were the Faces of Fear. Those guys were fucking amazing.
Yeah. I'm sold. I see what you're saying.
Like Faces of Fear were great. Like fucking, like Haku would just backdrop a motherfucker into Barbarian and be like, "You better catch him," and he just backdrop him. Barbarian catch that motherfucker and give him a powerbomb in the middle of the ring. It's fucking great. Then when he got that big afro, that was even better.
Yep.
Yeah, I like me some Mang and WCW.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm sold on that. On that theory. All right. Next is, I actually liked this guy better in WCW than I did in the WWE, and that's Ravishing Rick Rude.
He was, full disclosure, top on my list.
Okay. Rick Rude was definitely better in WCW. I think it was almost because, in my opinion, and you can tell me if this is the reason you think, I think that in WCW, Rick Rude's character was much cooler because Rick Rude's character was much more of a badass.
Yeah.
Like in WWF, because it's WWF and it's the 80s, like the ravishing gimmick was very bodacious and outrageous, and not that it was bad, he was a great fucking heel in the WWF.
Yeah.
But in WCW, much like you said with Meng, actually, Rude felt more dangerous in WCW.
Yeah, and there it wasn't that he was, like, the ravishing part of it was almost just a nickname. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't, his gimmick wasn't that he was, I mean, he did, like, the, but, like, he was just an abusive, mean, badass guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, him, I don't want to say, like, when he was in WWF, he was, like, leaner, and he was more jacked and everything, and shaved and everything. But when he got to WCW, he had, like, a thicker physique.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he got rid of his, like, big bushy hair and all that, and he just became a badass. And I've heard people say that they thought it was because he was like a big fish in a little pond, and I don't think that's what it is. I think the guy just he got in there and he finally had the
ability to shape more of his own character.
Yeah.
And I mean,
he wasn't typecast into this, like, he was never going to get over like a Randy Savage or a Hulk Hogan
mm-hmm.
or a Ted DiBiase or anybody like that. It just wasn't going to happen for him.
Right.
And when he got to WCW, and I'm not even saying it's because, like I said, he was like, in a lot of ways, he was better than those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people are, oh, better than Randy Savage, or better than Randy Savage. It's like, well, mate.
No, I would say that. I think Rude was overall, like, what do I want to say? Rude was a better. I think Rude was a better heel than Randy Savage.
Yeah.
The only guy that you listed that I would say I don't think Rude, and that's because I kind of classify him in a different era, is Ted DiBiase.
Well, I just meant like he wasn't ever going to be a bigger heel in that company than Ted DiBiase.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I don't think he was ever given a chance. And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, he got held back, or and then it sounds like it's sour grapes or whatever. But I think Rick Rude really was held back a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah, there we go. Rick Rude. Who's next on your list? Well, apparently Rude was also on your list.
Yeah,
but,
so I got two more left.
Okay.
Lex Luger.
Yes.
And I know everybody's going to say, oh, Lex. But there was a run there in, like, the late 80s into, like, the early 90s where Lex was actually really good.
He was... he benefited from opponents in that, and that's not a knock. I'm just saying... I know what run you're talking about. We're talking about like from Starrcade 88 to like early 90.
Yeah, when he was like with Harley.
And he had. Oh, well, you're talking about a different time then.
Well, I'm just saying, like there was.
I'm talking about the time when he wrestled Flair at Starrcade 88, and they had a good match, and he had good matches with Flair, and then he went into a feud with Steamboat, and then he had a feud with Barry Windham. Like he had a year there.
Those were all good. And then when he had that like last run as the champion or whatever, before he went to work for Vince, like from that first time he wrestled Flair or whatever, that time frame, to when he was the heel champ with Harley Race, and then anything after that, like when he went to WWF, he was terrible up there.
Yeah, his entire WWF run is ass. Like,
and then
even the narcissist, even the whole thing, like the narcissist, the Made in the USA, he's just boring in WWF.
Yeah.
Like,
then when he went back, it wasn't what it was. I think the guy when he went to the WWF lost it.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting Lex Luger when he was first was with the Horsemen. He wasn't very good,
right?
But he was surrounded with Horsemen, and then he got in, like you said, he got in there with guys like Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, Flying Brian, Barry Windham, all these different guys. And if you're going to do one thing, you're going to get better working with people like that. And then he went to the WWF, and it was just a complete farting church.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
They interviewed Davey Boy Smith once in a Raw magazine, and they asked him, "What's the best rib? What's the funniest rib anybody ever did to you, or what's the worst rib anybody ever did to you?" And he was like, "When they teamed me up with Lex Luger." I just thought that was funny.
So next on my list, a guy that, and this is multiple promotions outside of WWF, and he was better in all of them. To me personally, he was better used and better highlighted, and was able to do more and showcase more in not only the NWA but Japan and ECW, and that's Bam Bam Bigelow.
Yeah.
I think Bigelow had a cool run in the WWF, especially like the 93 heel run when he was having the matches with Bret Hart and stuff. I mean, he had moments in the WWF, but I mean, I am, folks, and as you know from listening to the show, I am probably the least fan of ECW that hosts in this show. My favorite Bam Bam Bigelow is Bam Bam Bigelow in ECW.
Yeah, when he's just beating the shit out of people.
ECW was to Bam Bam Bigelow like WWF was to Sid. You know what I mean? It was like Sid. Sid just fit the WWF. Bam Bam fit ECW. And yeah, I mean, my favorite Bam Bam stuff's in ECW.
I agree.
They had a really cool feud with Taz and
yeah.
Yeah, so
he has a match at a Starrcade with Barry Windham that's really good.
Starrcade 88.
And I think it's... And I know I was just saying, like, oh, people say things are... Bam Bam benefited because I think in that early run or whatever, he had better competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
His,
like how is Bam Bam Bigelow and the One Man Gang supposed to have a good match?
I was about to say his first run in the WWF. Like, he's wrestling One Man Gang. He's wrestling a very rundown Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy. Like, it was like they weren't doing him any favors.
Yeah, I mean, this guy can go. Why not put him in there with like Ted DiBiase or Rick Rude, somebody like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The guy can wrestle.
Yeah.
Let him wrestle.
I always thought a cool feud would have been Bam Bam Bigelow and Bad News Brown, too. I thought they had a cool program.
Since he was a face, I don't know why, but like, and I'm not even saying he had to win the belt, but I don't know why, but I think Bam Bam Bigelow versus the Honky Tonk Man in like a Saturday Night's main event Intercontinental feud would be fun.
Honky Tonk being fucking petrified of the guy.
Yeah, it would have been good.
And then also WWF didn't do him any favors by putting
with Oliver Humperdinck.
that Humperdinck albatross around his neck either.
People for Florida fans or whatever, like, we love Oliver Humperdinck. I haven't seen a lot of Florida. Okay, I'm gonna admit it. So maybe he was good there, but Oliver Humperdinck was trash. Like, everything I see like that, it's like, why are you around, Humperdinck?
Yeah, if you go back and watch some of the Mid-Atlantic stuff from like 83, early 84, and he's got One Man Gang. He's managing One Man Gang. He's got a couple other guys. Yeah, he's butt there too. I never liked Humperdinck.
Then he was like Big Daddy Dump or whatever when he was with the Freebirds.
Big Daddy Dink. That was the best part of his career, honestly, because he didn't do anything. He just stood
road
there.
boss.
Yeah.
Looked like a Squidbilly. I don't like that.
Well, your next guy, you said you got one left now?
Yeah, because you took Rude off my list.
All
and we were just talking about people being better in like ECW and WCW. And that would be, the last name on my list would be Raven.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I know it's a no-brainer, but yeah, Raven.
The Raven character. It's funny because you would think that the Raven character would have translated best to WCW or to ECW and WWF, but for some reason, even in the environment it was in, the Raven character worked in WCW.
Yeah.
So
it's because Eric Bischoff's got on record of not liking Raven or liking the gimmick, or like liking Scott Levy but not liking the gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
So I obviously have no insider information on it, but I would assume that a lot of Raven stuff probably went it was probably in WCW. It was probably Raven and Kevin Sullivan.
That's right. Yeah.
And Kevin Sullivan is as they always say, likes to book heat.
And he likes to book cult shit too. So
yeah, like Raven worked best when he had flunkies and people around him. Because honestly, Scott Levy's not the greatest wrestler in the world.
Right.
And Scott Levy probably admit to you that he's not the greatest wrestler in the world.
He does. Remember who he said his favorite opponent to wrestle is?
Oh yeah, Sandman.
Sandman, because Sandman would just bump around him. He didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. and it worked in those other companies because they gave him other people around him, so he could have all the sizzle because there wasn't much stake. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When he went to WWF, they always just put him out there as Raven. And I'm not saying he sucked in the WWF, but WWF didn't know what to do with him.
Yeah. Well, and as a closing thought on Raven, I'll say, smell my mustache. All right, so I have two left. The first one, head and shoulders above better in WCW than any of the couple of runs he had in the WWF, and that would be Barry Windham.
Oh, yeah.
Barry Windham, I guess I can see why the fans, I don't know, I guess I don't see it. Like, to me, 84 Windham and Rotunda in the WWF is boring. They're boring. And then the Stalker was just Fat Barry Windham. He was out of shape, and he was just, he didn't have the look. 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 and And then, they tried with the Blackjacks thing, and then the godforsaken NWA. Nothing just ever worked for Barry to me in the WWF. But he went to WCW for most of his run in WCW when he cared about himself and he cared about his health. He had fantastic matches in the 80s, and then the coup de grace is he got to end his career by being in the West Texas Rednecks.
Which was awesome.
So, you could always tell when Wyndham was excited and happy with what he was doing because he really put 100% in, and when he wasn't, he just was like Fat Barry Windham that didn't care. I've never seen a wrestler whose weight fluctuated like his did either. Like, you'd have like you can watch pay-per-views month to month, and he's like 20 pounds heavier. And but
I think the time that he had the biggest chance to make it in the WWF, honestly, was when he went over and they made him the Widowmaker, which whatever. They want to make him the Widowmaker, that's fine. Everybody had a nickname, everybody had a gimmick, and it's actually not a bad nickname if he would have been like the Widowmaker Barry Windham.
Mm-hmm. Well, then
not just the Widowmaker.
But then that got thwarted because of the counterfeit bills, right?
Yeah.
And then he had to... him and his dad disappeared for a while.
Well, he didn't even do it. Like, that's the thing. Like, his brother and him, or his brother and dad were counterfeiting money. It wasn't even Barry that did it, but Barry felt he had to go because he had to take care of his family or whatever. But I think if... how I would say it is, Barry Windham probably didn't see, WWF going much further with him than what he was, or I don't think he would have said, I'm just going to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. The last guy on my list, and I would not have said this a couple of years ago, but because when growing up, I didn't get to see this promotion. So the past couple of years have been my biggest exposure other than reading about it on magazines or seeing something here and there on YouTube or whatever, but actually watching the promotion. And that's Mid-South Wrestling and Jim Duggan. Jim Duggan was better in Mid-South than he was in the WWF or the WCW. Like, it's almost a completely different Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
And having now watched enough of it to make an educated statement on it, because, a couple of years ago, I've been like, well, I don't know. All I know is Jim Duggan from WWF, WCW, because I never saw Mid-South. But now that I've watched at least a few years of Mid-South, I can honestly say Jim Duggan in Mid-South was badass. Cool as fuck.
Yeah. And it's like, I think he almost had like a thing like the Bushwhackers. Where
why work so hard if I don't have to?
Yeah, it's like I've been beating my body up for this long, and now I'm up here, and they want me to throw a board around,
and act like
get
an idiot,
hose, and
act semi-retarded, and
yeah, and I'm making good scratch, and he turned that gimmick into like what, a 10-year run or what? I don't know, 10 years.
He was there from 87 to 93, so 6 years, but 6 or 7 years, but still.
And he probably made more money in that 6 or 7 years than he made anywhere else, so more power to him. Not saying that he wasn't better elsewhere, but more power to him.
Yep, he took the Hulk Hogan approach.
Koko B. Ware did the same thing.
He took the Hulk Hogan approach. Hulk Hogan said had he never got had he never started doing what he did in WWF and he kept wrestling like he did in Japan in the AWA, his career probably would have been 10 years shorter.
But, Koko B. Ware did the same thing. People talk about how great Koko was in Memphis and he was in shape and everything like that. So, well, he probably couldn't afford pork chops and steak and lobster. And then he got to the WWF and he was like
Dutch Mantell said, we're not even on food.
Yeah. Of course he got a little heavy.
Frankie liked it too. Yeah. he got that. He got that. The premium bird seed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's that for that list. When we'll take a break, we'll come back because your host here has to pee. And when we return, we will talk about some feel-good moments, top 5 feel-good moments, when we return here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. All right, wrestling fans, welcome back to the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And at this point in the shows where we always try to get the plugs in, want to remind you to join us on Facebook at the We Can't Wrestle Facebook page. And also send any questions that you have. And I have a few geared up. I've only gotten a couple in the past month or so. But you can send any questions you have for the hosts here to wecan'twrestle@gmail.com. The reason I'm not going to ask them today is, ironically, this may hurt our egos, but both of the questions that I have in the quay, if you will, right now are for Kyle. So,
all right, that's cool. Yeah. And I would like to say that I don't have the names in front of me because I don't have my phone right in front of me, but I had sent out some follow us requests to some people that I know from, well, not know personally, but like through some other Facebook type pages, and they've liked and followed it. So anybody that's done that, I appreciate it.
Welcome, guys. Welcome. If you're new listeners, welcome.
And I don't know if you've noticed that our follows went up on Facebook.
Yes, I have. It
might be because of me.
And actually, our listener count has gone up too.
That's good.
So that's good. I don't have that right in front of me either, because I don't have my phone right in front of me either to look at it. But I know our listener count went up because I looked the other day.
Good.
Also, just a couple other things. Do click the link on our Facebook page that I put up at least once a week to support Jerry Gray, great professional wrestler from the 1980s and the Mid-Atlantic World Class Championship Wrestling areas. Fighting stage 4 cancer, and fuck Jake Roberts. And also, don't forget, if you want to listen to a non-wrestling podcast, you can listen to the Motley Soup podcast with myself and my beautiful wife, Kendall, which we try to get one of those out at least a couple of times a month as well. The latest episode does not feature my blowhard ass hardly at all. It's her and a couple of her friends chatting about things. It's kind of...
her friends get invited. Your family, who has put out I will appear on your program, has not. I guess it's too highbrow for the likes of me.
Speaking of lowbrow, let's continue the We Can't Wrestle podcast.
Okay.
Feel-good moments. That was not a feel-good moment, but these will be feel-good moments. Feel-good moments in wrestling, and I'm going to start this one.
All right.
First one, and mine are not in any order at all. Just 5 what I think are really cool feel-good moments.
Mine will be the last one that I say will be what mine is.
Okay.
That's my first, but the other ones are interchangeable.
First one that I have is from 2008. It is the Ric Flair retirement ceremony that took place on and after Monday Night Raw, the day after WrestleMania 24.
Yeah. That's a good... I almost put the deal with after he had his match with Triple H.
Uh-huh. Oh, the Greensboro?
Yeah, because that almost, to me, that one's a little better because I don't think Flair knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that yours isn't. I mean, and I'm not saying that Flair wasn't genuinely, overcome with it. But, yeah. Undertaker coming out and saluting him.
Vince McMahon being Vince McMahon.
And hugging him and all that shit. Yeah, that's good stuff.
One of the two of the coolest moments in that to me, because it's, I don't want to put it. Two of the coolest moments in that one, to be honest, for me, are seeing him with Randy Orton and seeing him with Batista. Because not only did he get to pass his legacy and his knowledge on to Triple H and Shawn Michaels, But he got to pass it on to another generation of guys, and seeing that was really cool too. So that one's on there for me.
All right. Anything else on it?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to go with when Mick Foley won the WWF title on Monday Night Raw.
A really feel-good moment. A fun moment. Yes. Him doing the laps around the ring. Celebrating.
Celebrating with his buddies, talking to his kids.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in that building didn't think that was going to happen, but wanted that to happen.
Absolutely.
And when it did happen, they were like, "Holy shit, it just happened." You know what I mean? Like I highly doubt there was anybody in that entire building that was like, "Ah, fuck that." You know what I mean?
Yeah. And not to mention, that's one of those moments you look back and you see. It's one of the reasons that us aged, not old, but aged wrestling fans harken back to the days of yore, because now everything is so sanitized and predictable almost.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays you have your oh my God moments once in a while, but not anything that really captures people's emotions like a moment like that did. And yeah, I mean, even with it being a pre-recorded show and WCW trying to spoil it, the proof is in the pudding for how much people loved Mick Foley, because the minute they found out he was going to win the title, even though they knew he was going to win the title, they switched over because they wanted to see him win the title.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And you could, and I know he knew he was going to win it and everything like that, but it was a thing where you could tell that even though he knew it was going to happen and all that, the guy genuinely appreciated it. You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely. Good pull on that one.
Thank you.
Next one for me is WrestleMania 17, the return to the WWF of Bobby Heenan and Mean Gene Okerlund.
That's a great moment, and I didn't even think about that one, to be honest.
Watching Bobby look around like I'm back home again.
Yeah.
It's such a cool moment. Like, God, I've been in the... What do you call it? He called WCW Hee Haw or whatever.
Something like it, yeah.
Yeah, the wrestler's going to pop up out of the corn.
Yeah.
But to watch him, especially Bobby. Like, Gene, it's cool. But to watch them return to the WWF together, even just to call that stupid gimmick Battle Royal was...
And then he says, by the time the Iron Sheik gets to the ring, it's going to be WrestleMania 27.
So, yeah, that's one for me. I didn't have a whole lot on it. I just, whenever I watch WrestleMania 17, I pop and smile for that moment. So,
yeah. The next one on my list, and yeah, people can poo-poo it all they want and whatever, and I look at it now and I'm like, yeah, what? It still is cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is WrestleMania 7 when Macho Man loses his career, but he gets his woman back.
That's actually on my list.
Now it isn't. It's when the Macho Man and Miss Elizabeth get back together.
Yes.
It's another one of those things where, I know that even jaded male wrestling fans maybe weren't cheering it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like, "That's cool."
Do you know what? What I mean? Well, and you know what the thing is? Here's my thing.
The story's awesome.
Well, the story's awesome, and people can say what they want, and there have been some, Goldust Marlena, blah 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 blah. There have been some great wrestling couples. Randy Savage and Elizabeth are the greatest wrestling couple ever. As far as a guy and a girl together as a couple, just for me they are anyway. And on top of that, here's another thing I think that, like you said, the story was great, but also I think that if that would have been a wrestler like Hulk Hogan or Brutus Beefcake, and they had a girl, and that situation happened, the guy fans would have shit on it. But guy fans like Randy Savage, because Randy Savage is a crazy badass.
Yeah.
So all of us are happy that the crazy badass has this woman that kind of, You know, that's his woman. You know, she keeps she keeps him stable, man.
And that's the cool thing of the story is that he's insane. You know, whatever, but he did all this shitty stuff, and his woman left. You know, and they were still actually in love with each other, but they weren't together. And it took Randy Savage losing everything to realize that the only thing he really wanted or needed in his life was Miss Elizabeth.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, the guy just lost his career, but he don't give a fuck, because guess what?
He's got
Liz
his lady.
is back.
I got my lady.
My woman back. And she's the only one that's ever actually been there for me.
I'm gonna kick this crazy hoe to the curb.
Yeah. And he didn't even kick that crazy hoe to that curb. She kicked that crazy hoe to, like, she was like, Like, Miss Elizabeth had never been physical. I mean, like, she did the shit at WrestleMania 6 or whatever, you know, and Dance with Sapphire or whatever. But she had never actually been, like, she had never gotten involved.
Yeah, she never slapped a hoe.
Yeah, but she was like, "Nope, bitch, this shit ain't happening."
You think he's crazy?
Yeah, like it's just a fantastic story.
And then the whole thing, like the proposal,
like honestly, and I'm glad it didn't, because there was cool shit after it. But if that would have been the end of the Macho Man Randy Savage, that would have been like probably one of the best
career
caps or career ever.
Yep. And then even the stuff after, you know, leading up to, like, for me as a kid, one of the things, like, I can't hear someone say the name Elizabeth without going, Elizabeth, will you marry me? And then at their wedding, he's got that big ass feather. It's like the tallest. It's like the tallest feather. It's like a pelican feather. It's like the biggest feather.
All good shit.
But yeah, good story. Shit. All right, so we take that off my list and we go to next. So I've got 2 left, and the next one for me, and this one might be one that some people say because they're not as big a fan of the guy as I am. But a very good feel moment for me personally
was when Virgil won the $1 million championship.
Jesus Christ!
And then tried to sell it in Fort Wayne for $3,000.
So when we talk about the more deplorable moments, we'll get to that one. No, I'm talking about at SummerSlam 2002 and the return of Shawn Michaels. And he had a great match. Like, at 1998 for a Shawn Michaels fan, it felt too soon, and for a big-time Shawn Michaels fan like me, it was depressing that it seemed like he was never going to wrestle again. And, you know, every once in a while it would come up that, oh, he's back, he's in the ring training in Texas or whatever, and you'd get your hopes up, and then it wouldn't happen. But then when it finally did happen in that SummerSlam in 2002, and then to add to that, I mean, you talk about, like we talked earlier about there being 2 Scott Steiners or whatever. Yeah. Shawn Michaels has 2 careers. Like, you know what I mean? Like that the pre-98 career, which was great, but you look at post 2002 until he retired, the guy got a second chance to have a second amazing career in 2 different eras, and just to me it's a great story. And I mean, it is what it is as far as shoot interviews and stuff go with, like, Gregory Helms or whatever, talking about Shawn Michaels still a piece of shit, and some of that's probably sour grapes. I mean, overall, in the long run of things, seeing as, you know, business is business, but to me, seeing as Shawn Michaels went from a guy that was popping somas and probably could have died, like gone the way of like a Louis Spicoli or somebody,
or Rick McGraw or something like that.
And what people think about him professionally or whatever, that's one thing. But just the story of that and the fact that now he doesn't do anything like that, and he's got a family that he loves. I mean, why begrudge a man that? You know, the guy really he turned his fucking life around. End of story.
You know what? Sometimes when you say something like shitty or backhanded to somebody, it, like, in my professional life, like at my place of employment, I have people that work with me and work for me that sometimes I'll give them like a backhanded compliment, because I want more out of that person. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, sometimes, I'm not saying I want to be shitty with somebody just to be shitty with somebody, but, like, to me, sometimes when somebody tells me, like, my boss tells me I can't do something,
it's a good motivator.
in my mind, I'm like, you know what, man? Fuck you. I can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you that I can do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I know my boss thinks that sometimes.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? He's like, I'm going to tell you, and I'm not saying that he's told me that, but I know sometimes he does that.
Mm-hmm.
He'll tell me, he'll say, oh yeah, you want to do that? Well, I'll in a week from now, I'll be able to tell you that, you know, I told you so. And I'm like, you know what, motherfucker? No, you're not. And then when I'm not saying that he's never been like, you know what, I told you so. But 80% of the time, he's like, you know what? Good job, man. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that was going to work. Mm-hmm. I'm like, thanks. You know? Yeah. And it's got to be even, and I'm just a retailer. So it's, so it's got to be even on a bigger scale of, like, a Shawn Michaels telling a Gregory Helms some backhanded compliment. It's like, well, go out there and show him that he's wrong. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Go out there and show him that you're better than him. Maybe that's what Shawn Michaels wanted people to do.
Because one thing I can tell you is that, you know, for anything that somebody like a bitter guy like Helms would say, he probably won't say that now because he's back with the WWE now. He'll have a different tune about those things now that he's not sour grapes, my personal opinion. But also, he can say what he wants. People can say what they want about Shawn Michaels and politics, and if you talk about the Shawn Michaels up to WrestleMania 14, I would say I totally agree. But if I watch his career from 2002 until he retired, I never watched Shawn Michaels not put a younger guy over. Even if he won, I never watched Shawn Michaels bury anybody during that run. How many guys did Shawn Michaels help make during that run?
Yeah. Like
Randy Orton, Edge. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
I'll use this as an example of what I was just saying. And he's one of the guys that is in the WWF that I will say that I'm a mark for. Mm-hmm. And you know that I'm not lying when I say this. When Miz first got to the and it's not even just Shawn Michaels. When Miz first got to the WWE, no motherfucker wanted him there at all.
Right.
At all. Okay? And he took all that shit that they gave him, ate it, and said, you know what? I'm going to prove, like JBL says, I'm not worthy being in that dressing room and changing. Fine, I'm going to change in the hallway. I'm going to change in the broom closet. I'm going to change in my car until he says you can change in here. Mm-hmm. You know? Now, when he was doing that Diva Search thing and he forgot the number, and he looked at his wrist, like checked his tape and looked at the wrist to get the number, and laughed it off and walked off. And then the next week, Shawn Michaels and Triple H made fun of him on it. I've watched interviews with him, and he said he was like, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me was when DX made fun of me on television. You know what I mean? Because if they're making fun of me on television, that means they're paying attention to me.
Right.
So that means they obviously see something in me if they're taking enough time to pay attention to me and then mention me later on.
And, you know, fast forward 14 years later.
He's one of the top 3 people in this. He's one of the mainstays in the WWE. Is he the world champion? No. But is he on every show? Does he always have something going on? You can't say that for a lot of the guys in that company. A lot of those guys in that company, they get a push and then they're lukewarm, and then they get a push and then they're cold. They always keep Miz hot. You know, he's always got something going on. He's never one of those guys that's waiting and you know, treading water. So, but I mean, I know, like I said, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent of that.
No, but you're right. You're right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, it goes back to that though. Shawn Michaels, it's a feel good moment for that 2002 thing, especially in hindsight, because you see that it began a second chapter of his career where he got to kind of redeem himself.
Yeah.
So, all right, next on your list, how many you got left? 1, 2?
Oh, I got 3.
Damn.
I'm not that tired, so it's okay. I'm gonna go with my second title victory, and then I have 2 more after that.
Okay.
And it's because this one we could probably. I'm not saying we should breeze over quick, but I don't think it's going to be as quick. It's when Eddie beat Brock.
Well, there goes my list, because that was my last one. I was going to equate that to what you were saying about Foley. It was one of those things you didn't think was going to happen, but when it did, you were really happy it happened. You were rooting for it. But yeah, that was the last one on my list, was Eddie winning the title at No Way Out 2004.
He gets to hug his mom, and it's great.
And knowing his personal story and everything he went through, the struggles he went through, and then getting to beat not just anybody, but getting to beat Brock fucking Lesnar for the title.
It's great.
It's great. And the coolest thing about that is I love the way that match is booked. That match is not booked for Eddie to be like an oops champion, because Goldberg's interference is not what, you know what I mean?
Brock kicks out of it.
Yes.
And then they keep going.
Yes. That was like, it was perfect that they did that. Because other than that, then it looks like Eddie's win was a fluke. But the way they booked it, Eddie's win was Eddie winning. And that was cool. And Brock, to his credit, did a great job putting him over.
Yes, he did. Is it okay if we take one quick break?
Yeah.
Okay. You can mark that.
So yeah, Eddie Guerrero and the WWE Championship victory. Definitely a feel-good moment.
All right. So you don't have any left, right?
Nope.
All right. The next one is, I think this one's awesome because, they try to say, like, I don't want to they try to say, but when you see something on WWE or anything in wrestling in general that's supposed to be like a spontaneous moment, or, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen, and it's like genuinely they're trying to honor this person or whatever, but they know, like the Ric Flair birthday celebration, he knew a lot of those guys. Like, he knew like Ricky Steamboat was going to come out and Arn was going to come out, and he goes, oh, haha, and he seems so and I'm not saying he's not genuine about it.
Right.
They know this is happening. You know what I mean? Like when, what was it, when Kevin Nash went in the Hall of Fame, DX came out, or the Click came out, know?
Yeah. He knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, he knew that was going to happen. And it's going to sound weird when I say it, but have you ever seen when Charlie Pride goes into the Country Music Hall of Fame?
No.
Charlie Pride did not know he was going to go in the country, and he is sitting in the crowd, okay? Mm-hmm. And I don't remember the exact person that goes up that they're about, and they're like, here to induct our next person. I don't remember exactly who it was. Mm-hmm. But they go up and they start telling this story, and the camera's on Charlie Pride. He doesn't know it. And as they're telling this story, they talk about how and they're not saying who this person is, they're building it up. Mm-hmm. And they say, basically where Charlie Pride where this young man bought his first guitar. And when they start telling the story of where where this young child bought his first guitar, Charlie Pride finally realizes holy shit.
They're talking about me. Yeah.
They're talking about me. Like, they didn't tell him he was going into the hall. Like, he was sitting in the crowd just watching people getting inducted. Mm-hmm. And this is where I'm going with this. And it's a moment that I don't know a lot of people even think about. But it is at Slamboree 95. Okay?
Gordon Solie.
Gordon fucking Solie, when he gets put in the WCW Hall of Fame by Dusty Rhodes, because he had no, I'm saying, I can guarantee that Gordon Solie had no fucking idea he was going to that Hall of Fame.
He was surprised as can be.
Yeah, the minute he realized they were talking about him, that guy started crying. Mm-hmm. He had no fucking idea. And for it to be like a Dusty Rhodes doing it,
Yeah.
To me, that's a great fucking moment.
And it's one of the classiest things that company ever did.
Yeah. That company knew Gordon was leaving. Gordon was done. He wasn't going to have anything else to do with it. And it seriously was one of the classiest. It's one of the classiest things any wrestling company's ever done.
Yep.
Like, I'm just going to say it right. WWE wouldn't do something like that.
No. Everything in WWE has to be choreographed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is
not
one
that,
of...
Not that when guys accept that they're not being genuine. You know what I mean? But there would never be a surprise like that in the WWE.
Yeah.
That you would know that you were going in.
Yeah, and Gordon Solie had no fucking idea. And it just, like I said, I think that's a great moment in professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part is it happened in like 1995 at a Slamboree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
maybe a lot of people don't know about it or remember it. But there's times that I've put on that just to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? 'Cause I'm like, that is a cool fucking moment.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that was the second to last thing on my list. And when we were just talking about WWE and choreographed and all this, I know they do a lot of that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is because they're a television program. And I know they do a lot of things for investors and things like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually some kind of ulterior motive, or it's somewhat genuine but not completely, you know?
Yeah. A lot of look at us
But-
moments.
Huh?
A lot of look at us moments. That's what I call it. Look at us, you know. Yeah.
But to me, in the last 10 years, the thing I think they did that they didn't give a shit if it really got any play, and I think it's the coolest thing they've ever done with their Hall of Fame, and it hits me in my feels,
Connor.
is when they put Conor the Crusher in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I actually have...
Like, I'm man enough to admit that when I watched that video, like with all them wrestlers and him with those, like, behind the scenes and his dad and all that shit, I cried a little. I cried.
I did too. And I actually have that as, because I had two kind of like honorable mentions for this in the back of my mind, and that was there. And the only reason I didn't put it on there is because I was like, there's no way Aaron's not going to have that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way that's not going to be on the list. So, yeah, it's
like
definitely...
if somebody watches that's never seen it before and doesn't cry a little bit, they're a soulless fucking human being, and I don't want to be your friend anymore.
Yeah, even if you're not a wrestling fan.
Yeah,
like,
that's what
you
I'm
know.
saying. Like, you've never seen this? Oh, watch this. And then if they don't cry a little bit, it's like, you're fucking dead inside,
You're a
you prick.
dick. But yeah, I had that in the back of my mind too. And like I said, that was one where I knew we'd both probably mention that one, so I didn't put it on my definitive list there. The other one that I had that I personally think is a feel-good moment is Punk winning the title at Money in the Bank 2011.
Eh.
But that's just me. I was a mark for that whole deal. But that was those were some good lists, I think, of feel-good moments.
Yeah.
If you're listening to the show and you have any of your own that you'd like to add, you can always comment below the post of the podcast or comment on our Facebook page. And
Yes, if you want to comment below me,
we'll,
go ahead.
we'll mention you on the Don't Belong. When you said below, you sounded like Kevin
Pollock.
Kevin Pollock in The Whole 10 Yards. Don't belong.
Don't belong.
Don't belong. Don't belong. That's one of the greatest comedic characters ever.
That's one of the greatest comedic movies ever.
Is it Whole 9 Yards or Whole 10 Yards with the chicken scene? That fucking shit's great.
That's the
When
whole 10 yards.
He's trying, yeah, it's Whole 10 Yards. He's trying not to hit the chicken.
And he's like, you killed Blanche. You ran over Blanche.
Oh, fuck. All right.
He knows his chickens.
All right, so now that we got those... What happened to my voice there?
Piece of pie.
Piece of
Piece
pie.
of cake.
No,
What'd
piece
you
of
say?
pie. What'd I say? Piece of pie.
What'd you say? No, he said, what'd you say? Piece of cake.
What'd
What'd I say? Piece of pie. Piece of pie.
Piece of pie.
And then when his boy gets like knocked out by the knockout gas, and then all the ambulances drive by, and he's like, "Ah, here we go." Like,
Yes.
it's his fault. Oh my god, those movies are great.
Yeah, they are. So, those are like some of the greatest ensemble cast movies ever made.
Oh, yeah, they're great.
So, we're going to take a break or what?
If you want, it's up to you.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back, and our final segment will not be, well, it won't be wrestling, but it will be...
this will also be... How long have we been doing this? Not this show, but not this particular show, but the entire podcast.
Since it's been almost 2 years.
This is the hardest list that we've made in the entire at least for me, in the entire 2 years, and it's changed like 5 times.
Me too. Like, if I had honorable mentions, I'd have like 26 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Because I wound up whittling out a lot of like half-hour sitcoms and stuff and going with more serious shit.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it was tough, but I think it'll be worth it. When we come back after the break, we will both discuss our top 5 favorite television shows. Here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast, we'll be right back after this. All right, welcome back, wrestling fans of the We Can't Wrestle podcast. And just so you know, you can check us out on any podcast app that you use: Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play. We are available everywhere on the We Can't Wrestle podcast. So, I mean, if I'm going to give a personal recommendation of one, I say Podcast Addict, just because you can download the podcast and not have to be connected to the internet to listen to it. You don't have to stream it. But that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, the next topic on the show, our 5 favorite TV shows of all time. And like Aaron said, this was a toughie. This is a toughie, yes. It's tough for fans of television shows, and especially episodic TV shows and et cetera, to pick one or 2 or 5 to be your favorites, so had to kind of whittle it down, and I'll let you go first, brother.
All right. Sorry. The first one on my list it's the only one on my list that is still an active television program, and that is The Blacklist.
I've never seen The Blacklist.
You should watch The Blacklist.
What is the premise? What is so special about this show?
For one, its main star is James Spader.
Sold.
And he plays Raymond Red Reddington, and he is the FBI's most wanted felon, and he has this obsession with a young FBI agent, and it's supposedly his daughter, and there's a lot that goes into it, and if you haven't seen it, I don't want to spoil it, but every show, like every episode of this show, is like a movie. It's like movie quality.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what he does is he turns himself in, and they've been searching for him forever. He finally turns himself in because this woman that he has a obsession with, she is the only one that he will deal with. Like, he basically comes in, and this guy is like the greatest criminal on the face of the planet, and he has this blacklist of all these different criminals that the FBI is trying to get, and he's going to help them catch these people. But every time there's some kind of catch to it that they don't realize.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like at the beginning of it, he's searching for certain things, and he has an end game, and nobody knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So every time he feeds them a member of the Blacklist, it's because he wants to grab something. He wants to get something out of it from that criminal that he's helping them catch.
Gotcha.
So the feds work with him because they're like, this guy's a piece of shit, but he's helping us catch other pieces of shit.
Mm-hmm.
He may be a piece of shit, but he's our piece of shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's really, really good. And if I talk too much about it, it's going to spoil a lot of stuff. But you owe it to yourself to watch The Blacklist.
I will check it out, and hopefully all of our listeners do too. Actually, I think only one of mine is also still on the air technically. But anyway, the first one on my list is definitely one of my favorite shows. I'm a sci-fi geek, and I have to put X-Files on there.
X-Files is a good show. I like when it came out on Netflix. Like when it came back out, I shouldn't say came out on Netflix.
Right.
But when like Netflix dropped it, like they were like, "Oh, we're gonna drop,
Mm-hmm.
X-Files. Here it is." The only knock I had on it was that not every show still holds up.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can see that from a perspective of if my 16-year-old son were to start watching it now, yes, you're right. But for me personally, because I watched it in the moment and now, it all still holds up for me personally.
Yeah.
The thing about one of the things I love about the X-Files not only is it's like the it's like the coast to coast of TV. Like it explores it throughout the show starts off just talking about aliens, okay? But as the show evolves, any outer fringe kind of thing at some point during that show they cover it in an episode.
Yeah.
And the other thing
I'm not saying it's not a good show.
Oh, I know. But the other thing I really love about X-Files is it's one of those shows that has lots of really cool, because there is an ongoing story throughout the show, but X-Files has a lot of really cool episodes that you can watch as standalones.
Yeah.
I can go and say, oh man, I love the fucking episode with the fucking guy under the bed. If anybody knows what episode I'm talking about. Or I love the episode with this character. I love the episode with this case.
My favorite one is the Circus Freaks.
That's a great that's a fucking awesome episode.
That's my favorite X-Files episode.
It's like even Mulder is weirded out by that shit. But yeah, I mean I love that show. And like I said, the geek eats like the twin that's coming out of the guy's stomach. Yeah.
It's great. And then I like that one, and then my other favorite one is the one where it's like the revival tent.
Yeah, that's the
guy gets burned up at the beginning of it, and the kid heals him and all that shit. That's my second favorite one.
My favorite non-story, like overarching story episode is the one with the hillbilly family where they have the mutant dude under the bed, and that one's fucking crazy. I love that episode. But yeah, overall, X-Files is one of my favorite shows. And like I said, it's a show that I have probably 10 to 15 episodes that, I've only ever watched the series all the way through maybe 2 times, but then I also have those 10 to 15 episodes that once every year or whatever, I'll go back and watch those. So, all right.
Good poll. Next one on my list is Breaking Bad.
That's also on my list.
It should be on everybody's list.
Breaking Bad is... Okay, I'm going to tell a funny story before we even talk about the show. My wife, my co-host on the Motley Soup podcast, when I watch Breaking Bad, she refuses to watch it. And you know what she says? She won't watch Breaking Bad. Like, she will not watch it. And I'm like, why won't you watch it? It's fucking great. She's like, every time you're watching it, it makes me nervous. I don't know why, but the show makes my wife nervous. But Breaking Bad is... Walter White's one of the greatest characters in television history. Yeah. His transformation throughout the show from hapless cancer victim to
drug
kingpin is,
and it's the best part is what really sets it off. And in my opinion, it's what really sets it off is when his boss tells him that he had a call off. So now he has to go do wipe downs. And he loses his mind. And he's like, fuck you, and your fucking eyebrows. And then he just knocks everything over as on the way out.
He does.
And
he does in that scene what is one of my favorite expressions. You know what one of my favorite expressions is?
What's that?
Losing your shit. I love that expression. That guy lost his shit.
Yeah. And it's great. And when he throws the pizza up on the roof, it's one of the greatest scenes in the history of television.
One of the most intense. That show has possibly the most intense moment in television history. When he watches Pinkman's girlfriend OD and just lets her die. That is one of the most intense, like, gut-wrenching... You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well,
I was like, honestly, oh my God.
Honestly, Pinkman has the worst... He has the worst scene. Like, I don't want to say gut... Like, he has, out of all the characters that have anything to happen to them, Pinkman has the worst. Is when he's stuck in that car and Andrea or whatever opens the door and Todd shoots her in the head.
Yeah.
Because that biker gang's trying to prove a point. That scene in that show is like
intense.
Yeah, like that's some hardcore shit. And out of all the people in that show, Pinkman's the person I feel the worst for.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I mean that guy, he had a shitty life before, but like out of everything that, and I know he ends up saving his life at the end of it, but out of everybody that Walter White, other than his family, his kids and his wife, Walter White injecting himself into Jesse Pinkman's life ruins that guy's life.
Yeah.
Just ruins it.
Absolutely.
Walter White ruins everybody's life around him. But for some reason, you root for the guy.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I don't get it.
He's the biggest douchebag underdog ever.
Yeah, and then you think, like, when you start the show, you think Hank is just going to be a douchebag moron.
And he turns out to be a fantastic man.
Yeah, he's he's great at his job. He's a great police, like you know what I mean? Like, you think the guy's a blowhard at the beginning of it, but you're like, no, this guy's really good at his job, and the characters on that show are so well defined, and everybody on that show evolves. You know what I mean? Like, not one of those characters is stagnant the entire time.
Absolutely,
It's
great
a
show. So we take Breaking Bad off my list. Next on the list.
Oh, by the way, Todd, worst person on the entire show. For one, he takes a great business model and just fucks it up. And out of everybody on the entire show, he's the most heartless douchebag on the entire. Like when they first meet Todd, you think the Jesse Pinkman and Walter White think, hey, we got a rube here, we got a mark. Turns out he's the sickest, most callous motherfucker out of the whole group.
Sleeper characters too on that show. Jesse's two buddies,
Combo and Badger.
Yep.
And the skinny guy, I forget, Skinny Pete.
Yeah.
Skinny Pete, Combo, and Badger.
And
what's what when Combo gets shot? What does Walter White say? He's like, I feel bad that Corn Nut got shot or whatever. Jesse Pinkman's like, his name's Combo, man.
That's not even his name either. But yeah.
His name's Combo.
So next
That's
on my
his nickname.
Next on my list, you don't have a comedic bone in your body, or not a true comedic bone in your body, if you do not enjoy Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 is a very simple show as far as production goes, but one of the greatest, like I said before, we were talking about how it was hard to make this list, how I knocked off so many like sitcoms and stuff like that I think are just fantastic. But as far as something comedic goes, Mystery Science Theater had to be up there because there's it's so creative and it's so funny and it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I mean,
I started putting comedy shows on my list, but I was like, I'm going with. And I'm not saying it's not, but I was like going with like true TV shows.
Yeah.
You know?
And MST3K is the only comedic show that made it through my filter there. Just because, like, I know a lot of people would look at it and say, well, it's just goofy comedy. And it is, but it's also, to me, very profound.
It's not, I don't even think it's goofy comedy. I think it's super intelligent.
It's satire at its best.
Yes.
And if you have never watched it, you're missing out. If you don't enjoy it, you should probably check to see if you have a sense of humor and a pulse. And, yeah, just a fantastic show.
I mean, as long as you're a guy.
Yeah.
It's not really a girl show.
Well, my wife likes it. Yeah. But my wife's also a comedic woman.
Yeah.
So, but, there's too many to name favorite episodes, but, I mean... Manos, The Hands of Fate is great. Mitchell. Of the new one, what's the fucking Mac and Me? Mac and Me.
Mac and Me was great.
Of the new one, that was great.
The one with like the Bigfoot on the new one.
Yes.
This episode of the newer season, that one's great. When the little boy walks in the room, he's like, this beat is very foul. Very foul.
That guy, oh my God, I popped so hard for that. That was fucking great.
That's good shit. My personal favorite Mystery Science Theater of all time is Pod People.
Very good. Manos Hands of Fate is my favorite, but Pod People is fantastic too.
Oh, look at you. You're a hairy potato. Oh, you're a fluffy potato. Or when he, at the beginning of it, when like because the movie makes no fucking sense. Like if you watch the movie without them, it makes no fucking sense. There's hunters, and then there's some eggs, and there's some Norwegian rock band, and it's fucking all over the fucking place. And when the kid is like looking in the fucking telescope,
yeah,
and the spaceship goes by it, and it's like, shoo, and then the cat's like, meow, and the boy jumps, and then fucking Joel's like, that darn cat. That shit is so funny. And then when Trumpy like makes the room go crazy.
Ooh, shit.
Yeah, they're like, we're in a Peter Gabriel video. I want to be a sledgehammer and all that shit. It's Pod People is the greatest Mystery Science Theater of all time. Every time that bearded hunter man stands up and they have like a lower shot of him, they're like, huzzah! It's fucking great.
All right. MST3K.
Yes. I should have put that on my list.
That's all right. We covered it, so there you go.
All right. Next on my list is Mad Men.
Mad Men's a fantastic show. Another one of those ones that I was like, God damn it. Like, making this... If I would have made this list with all my favorite shows, we would have been here for 3 hours just talking about that. Mad Men is also a fantastic show.
And a show it took me 3 years to get you to watch.
Yes, you're right. You're right. The reason I was originally resistant of Mad Men was that I am not usually, being honest, like, as far as period pieces go, to be honest, I'm not usually, other than gangster movies, a fan of stuff. I don't know why, but stuff set in the 50s and early 60s. It just does not appeal to me. So I didn't think that show would appeal to me. And then I watched it, and I thought it was fantastic.
It's multi-layered.
Yes.
It's like it's a show that there's like 80 characters in the show, and like only one of them is redeemable. But you still root for these people. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don Draper is not a redeemable person.
No, he's a misogynistic asshole.
Yeah.
However,
like I said, with a Walter White, you still, for some reason, you kind of root for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the only guy that is, I shouldn't even say guy, the only character that's redeemable in the entire show is Ken Cosgrove.
Yeah.
Ken Cosgrove has no right, like, no reason for being associated with these people at all. He's like the only one that just wants to have a family life, and is like, you people are horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he wants to do things the right way, and he doesn't want to fuck other people over. He just wants to do his job and go home and write his little science fiction stories. He's like the only redeemable character. But for some reason, you know who my favorite character in the entire show is? Roger Sterling.
Yeah, no, Roger Sterling's my favorite scene in that show is the stairs scene.
Yeah, where he's trying to,
when he's going up the stairs, and then he's like, he goes to the meeting with the Japanese guys, and he gives them like the 1 minute sign, and then he just goes, "Buh."
Yeah, he just pukes. It's great. My favorite Roger Sterling line is, like, you know, when the British take over,
mm-hmm.
and they bring the John Deere tractor into the office.
Yep.
And they're all kind of hammered or whatever, and the girl tries to drive it, and then she runs over his foot,
mm-hmm.
the British guy's foot, and then they're all at the hospital, and and I probably would have laughed at this too. And Don Draper's character laughs at it. Is like, he's probably gonna lose his foot, and Roger Sterling's like, oh, right when he got in the door. And I laugh at that because I'm like, you know what? That's probably something I would say.
It's a great joke.
It's a great fucking joke.
The the true testament, like I said, to Mad Men is, folks, I am not a guy for some reason, as far as period pieces go when it comes to TV shows and movies, I'm not a fan of stuff set in the 50s and early 60s. Much like I'm not for cop shows. I'm not a big cop show guy, but that show actually, it sold me. It was a great show, and like Aaron said, he had to twist my arm to watch it, and once I watched it, I was hooked, and it is definitely one of the best TV shows ever made.
And my, like, the right when he got it in the door is the fucking funniest line in the entire history of that show. But to me, the greatest scene of that show is, because, you know, Don Draper actually isn't Don Draper.
Right.
You know, is when he gets kicked out. You know, like, he gets pushed out of his own company.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes his kids back and shows them I'll just say what it was, the whorehouse that he grew up in.
Yep.
And his kids are looking at it, and he looks at them, and they're like, where's that? Or what is that? And he's like, that's where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's that moment when he's like, you know what? All these people that kick me out, they all come from money. They all come from wealth. They all come from, like, you know, Ivy League schools. I fucking came up.
I earned it. I built
absolutely fucking nothing. And that's that moment when he realizes, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to show all these motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm.
I earned everything I got. And that's the moment when you realize, you know what? He might not be the greatest guy in the world, but fucking Don Draper busted his fucking ass.
Mm-hmm.
He hustled to get to where he was at. And then another fucking funny scene, and then we'll go on to the next show, is when they're getting ready for his daughter's birthday, and like he's building the fucking dream house or the little playhouse or whatever.
Yep.
And he keeps drinking the entire time, drinking, and his wife's bitching at him. And then he's got to go get the cake. And he's fucking hammered when he go get the cake.
He drives right past the house.
And then he gets right by the house, and he sees all the people at his house.
Just drives on
that shit. So then he just keeps fucking driving.
Hey, you know what?
And then he's eating the cake.
whether you're Don Draper, or whoever you are, as a married man with a family, we have all had one moment where we just wanted to drive on past the house.
And that's what that motherfucker did that night. And then he just fucking sat in that car and ate the cake himself. It's great.
So next on my list is The Sopranos.
Oh, gotta scratch that off mine.
The Sopranos is possibly...
I wrote that down as being the greatest show ever made.
See, it's not. It's my second favorite show ever made. My first one is, and you'll when I say it, you'll go, oh yeah. But anyway, The Sopranos is the best show ever, especially for guys. The Sopranos is definitely a guy show. My wife hates it.
How do you hate The Sopranos?
She does. She doesn't like it. She doesn't like it at all. She doesn't like... But see, I like Goodfellas and I like Godfather and all that. She doesn't like mob movies either. So, it's just not her deal. I've tried to explain to her that Sopranos is so much more than that. The story... And it doesn't work. So, it's never going to work. But The Sopranos is... I mean, from character development to writing to... just story in general, everything. It's epic. It's an epic TV show. It you know, a lot of shows are a lot of hype, and you know it's like it's all right. That show is a lot of hype and lives up to every minute of its hype.
They don't leave anything left undone either.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if they start like I don't know. Like, if they start something in Season 3, and they might not go right to it in Season 4, but then they might come back to it in Season 5, and that guy's going to get offed.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, Tony doesn't have, like, the cop friend that he has, or I shouldn't say friend, but, like, the cop that works for him that he has, like, follow Milfy around and everything like that. He's not on every episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So... It almost got it to where you almost forget about that guy.
That's what I was saying.
Then he shows up again. And you're like, hey, I remember that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's been following her around, and no character just disappears, and you never hear from him again. Like that guy gets offed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I don't remember all the characters' names, but
I don't either.
But he's got it's the greatest show ever made, and. The ending is great.
I love his relationship with the police.
Yeah.
Hey, come in and search, you motherfuckers. Yeah. Like, how many times in that show do they come in his house? You know, it's like, you motherfuckers. Yeah.
Or the FBI agent.
Yep.
After he's done, like, you're not my assignment anymore. He's like, hey, he just likes Tony. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, they're investigating. I'm just
like how many times have I been in your kitchen, Tony? You know?
Yeah, it's all right, man. But yeah, it's just a great show. And Tony Soprano is...
And even though she's a bitch, during the whole show, you really feel for his wife.
Yeah.
You know, like, she's in this, and she loves this guy, so she's in it, you know, but she doesn't want to be in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's a fantastic. It's one of those shows that'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, it'll make you cringe. You get attached to characters and then they die and you're sad about it.
And then there's characters that
they die and you're happy about it.
Yeah, I almost put that you know there's shows that I've watched where I've liked the show and I might need to take like a quick break after this, but you watch a show and you're like, you know what, that character is really annoying, and they're not supposed to be. Mm-hmm. But when you watch The Sopranos and there's an annoying character,
There's a purpose for that.
That person's supposed to be annoying.
Tony's probably going to put a knife in that guy's throat.
Yeah, that person, like Tony's mom is annoying and hard to listen to and grating on your mind. But it's because she's playing her role perfectly.
Yep.
Like nobody in that show did a bad job at the character they were supposed to play.
Right.
Like, I've just started watching The Sopranos again. I start watching about once a year. I'm like, I'm going to start watching The Sopranos again. And every time I watch it, I'm like, Tony's mom is horrible.
It is one of the two shows that I watch yearly, too. I watch that one and then my number one. So, yes, I agree with you. So there it is, The Sopranos. Hey, how you doing?
All right, the last one on my list, and I could... Honestly, I mean, I know I said The Sopranos is the greatest show. This would probably be if I had to, if somebody told me you can't pick The Sopranos as your favorite show, which you basically just did to me, it would be Justified.
I also love Justified. It didn't... I didn't... It's funny because Justified actually got edged out because I decided to go ahead and put MST3K on my list. Because like you said, you kind of edge comedies out a little bit at a time, just because, and I think it's just because comedies don't have quote unquote overarching big stories, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if MST3K would not have been on my list, Justified would have been on my list.
Justified is amazing.
Yes.
It is a show, like I said before, with The Sopranos, that there's not a bad character on the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's bad character, bad guy characters, but there's every character on the show is great. Every storyline is good.
Mm-hmm.
I almost put I'm a Walking Dead fan.
Yes.
There's been points of The Walking Dead where I've been like, you know what? They're not really bringing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Justified fucking brings it. Its entire 7 seasons. Mm-hmm. They bring it the entire fucking time.
And actually, I want to make this. We'll tie this into wrestling because this is a wrestling podcast. But I've made this observation in my brain before, and I don't think I've ever brought it up to you. And I want to see what you think about it. Okay? Because it's on a wrestling perspective. From a wrestling perspective, if you think about the 1980s and early 90s in the WWF. You know who Art is?
Who's Art?
Art is Gorilla Monsoon. Seriously, Art is the rational guy surrounded by fucking lunatics. Art is just he is just driven batshit crazy by his lunatics all around him. And yeah, Art is Gorilla Monsoon.
So would Boyd and Randall be Macho Man and Rick and Hulk Hogan?
I was even thinking more the broadcast team. You got Heenan and Mean Gene and
yeah, but I'm just saying, if you think about Boyd and Raylan would be like Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man.
Yeah, they have their eternal struggle throughout other feuds.
Yeah, but they're still brothers at the end.
Yes, and they come together. Yeah, that's what I say. They come together.
They kind of had a feud over the same woman for a little bit.
Yeah.
That type of thing. But, there's not a bad character on the show. Win Duffy's awesome.
Yes.
I love Win Duffy as a character.
What's his face? Damn it. Why can't it? The guy with the eyes and the blonde hair. The villain.
Robert Quayles?
Yes.
Yeah, when Win Duffy's describing him, he's like, who are you talking to? And they're like, I don't know. Was it Robert Quayles? I don't know who that is. Steely blue eyes, big baby head. Yeah, that was him. The show is funny. When Dewey tries to impersonate Raylan.
Fucking Dewey.
And he goes in and he tries to steal all the drugs or whatever, and because he has Raylan's hat.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm Raylan Givens, and I'm taking all your money, and all that, and he steals it, and then the Bennetts accuse Raylan of it, and they have Raylan in the back of the van, and like those two hooker girls were there or whatever, and they open up the fucking van and Raylan's sitting in there because I mean I'm not gay, but the guy that plays Raylan Givens, a good looking dude, you know,
Yeah.
opens up the fucking van door and they like look at the prostitute and is like, "Is this the guy that robbed you?" And he's like, and she's like, "God no." Yeah, you know, that type of thing. And then Dewey Cox, he winds up getting a bunch of money, and Raylan shoots his pool.
Fucking Dewey, man. God damn it, Dewey.
Everybody on that show.
Dewey might be, if not the best, one of the best hapless idiots in entertainment history.
That fucking show's great. It's funny. It's funny when it needs to be funny. It's serious when it needs to be serious. It's everything. It's a tremendous show.
Absolutely.
And I had two shows that almost made my list. One was a comedy, and the other one isn't a comedy. And I'm sure you've seen the comedy I'm going to talk about, and we won't get too much into it. But have you ever watched Longmire?
No.
You should watch Longmire. It's a great show. It's like a detective show, but it's set in like Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's a cop show, but it's set like in like a Western environment, but in modern day. It's great. And then the comedy show that honestly got edged out was 30 Rock.
Okay.
I think 30 Rock is probably my favorite sitcom of all time.
It's fucking funny as shit.
No, it's great.
So my favorite TV show of all time. You guys, you guys can have Trump or Obama or whoever you want, but my president is Jed Bartlett.
Oh, The West Wing's fantastic.
Well, and you know, it's from me being also a political guy. If you listen to my other podcast, you know that. The West Wing is my favorite TV show of all time. I just said earlier that I usually watch The Sopranos once a year. I also usually watch all of The West Wing once a year as well. That show it's this. I think it's the smartest TV show ever written. It's smart. It's funny. If you really watch it and you have an intelligent sense of humor, it's got a great sense of humor. It has amazing characters that you really get attached to.
It's got two of my favorite scenes in the history of television.
The best episode of that show has the greatest scene in the history of television, and that's the episode 2, Cathedrals.
Yeah, where he's having his monologue against Christ.
Mm-hmm. I love the best part about that is when he talks about the what's it called? Well, the ship that goes around and fixes other ships.
Yeah.
And he's like, you took out, I forget what the kind of ship it is, but he's like, you took out this ship. You know what the ship's job is?
Yeah,
it's a ship that goes around and takes care of other ships. She gets her first car and you hit her with a drunk driver. What is that supposed to be funny? Like it's just.
But he puts his cigarette out.
Yeah, he puts his cigarette out in the church.
Yeah, it's great. And then my other favorite scene from that show is when that news reporter doesn't stand up.
Mm-hmm. The Republican lady.
Yeah, and then he goes through the whole Bible thing.
Yeah. Football.
Yeah. Like he verbally smacks that bitch down. And then at the end of it, like, you know, he's like, when I walk in a room, everybody stands up. You know, that type of thing. And then she has to stand up in front of everybody. Like the president right there was he was, I don't want to say being a dick, but he was like, you know, like Jed Bartlett's character. I know it's not real, but there have been, like, his character was humble, but there were times where he was like, you know what?
You will respect my position.
I'm gonna show that I got the biggest dick in the room now.
I have the biggest brain, at least.
Yeah, you know, or like when Mark Harmon's character gets shot after he finds out that he doesn't have to
to guard CJ anymore.
Yeah, and he gets shot, and he's talking to Brolin's character who's running against him, and he's like, "Boy, guns. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he looks at him and he goes,
That's the moment I decided I was going to kick your ass.
You know, that
Boy guns. I don't know.
I don't know. And then he goes through his thing, he puts his cigarette out, and he goes, you know, when he said boy guns, I don't know. That's the minute I decided I was going to kick your ass. That's a great fucking scene, too. And there's so much funny things in it. Like, Josh Lyman's funny as hell.
Mm-hmm.
When Rob Lowe's like, oh, all this talk of Chinese opera and no sex. I just can't wait. You know? That's a great line.
Yeah, fantastic TV show. My favorite.
Great.
Favorite show. My honorable mentions that I wanted to bring up, you brought up two, so I'll just throw two out there. If you have not watched it, if you are a geek and a superhero fan like I am, you have to watch Daredevil on Netflix. Daredevil is fantastic, and I'll tell you this, as a comic book fan my whole life, of all the big-time villains in comics, I was never a fan of Kingpin, okay? Like, I could never get on board with Kingpin. Now, in the Daredevil series, not James Gandolfini. That's fucking Tony Soprano. Who's the guy from Criminal Intent?
Vincent
D'Onofrio. He plays Kingpin. He made me a fan of Kingpin. He is absolutely fantastic in that show, and the character's great. And then as far as comedies go, an honorable mention for me is The Office.
Oh, The Office is great.
The Office is so funny. So funny. Michael Scott is one of the best ironic characters in television history. Like that character is just, it's brilliance. It's brilliance. He's a fucking idiot, but you love him.
when he runs what's her face over, and they take her to the doctor, she has rabies, and he's like, "You're welcome." You know, like, if I wouldn't ran you over with your car, you wouldn't. If I wouldn't ran you over with my car, you would have never known you had rabies.
Oh shit! It's fucking funny. Oh god.
Fucking Creed. Creed's amazing.
Yeah.
Everybody on that show, Stanley.
Everybody, and you know what's great about the Creed character? Like, not to the extent of Creed, like when he talks about Russian spies or whatever, but everybody in their workplace has that person that has like a vague background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what is his story? You know, like what has this old man been through?
And then, like, you know, you watch a show and you go, okay, I know that guy and I know that guy.
Yeah.
And then you watch it some more and you try to look and be like, you know what, I might be that guy. You know, when I first started watching that show, I was like, I think I'm Jim. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I'm the coolest guy there. And as that show went on, you know who I decided I think I am?
Who?
I think I'm Stanley.
You're just watching everything, shaking your head?
Yeah, like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Like, what the fuck? Like, you're not always going to give your opinion, but when somebody asks you,
yeah, they're going to get it, and you're
going to get my fucking opinion.
They're going to get it, and you're going to get it. I'm going to go big here.
Yeah, like, he's the only guy that, like, Michael Scott would back down from too. Like he would go off on Michael sometimes.
You Michael. I love it when Michael has his meetings. Like, he's always the first one that's like, I'm out of here.
I got shit to do.
I gotta go read my newspaper.
Yeah, like, I've become Stanley in my life.
Well, there it is, wrestling fans. The latest edition of the We Can't Wrestle podcast, and we want to thank you for joining us for this week's show. We will definitely be back next week with another edition of the show. And I think next week we are going to play, first of all, we'll play Gimmick versus Gimmick. Which will be, we'll take a wrestler. This isn't going to be like Doink the Clown versus
Big Josh.
Big Josh. Well, yes, it would. No. I was saying this wouldn't be Gimmick versus Gimmick like Doink the Clown versus Sting. This is the same wrestler with multiple gimmicks, and what was the best of those gimmicks. So, Aaron, if you want to pick like 4 or 5, and I'll pick 4 or 5, and we'll see. We'll see if we come up with the same people. Then we'll have to pick others. But
okay, and then did you want to do something else? This is the other idea I know we've done before, where we've each watched a pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
How about? And if Kyle joins in, he can help too.
Mm-hmm.
How about we watch the same pay-per-view and compare notes?
That would work for me too. Do you have a pay-per-view in mind?
No, I have 5 of them, which obviously we're not going to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to let you pick. So pick 1 through 5, and whichever one you pick is the one we'll watch.
Let's go middle of the ground. Number 3.
Number 3 will be WWF In Your House 5.
In Your House 5. All right. Let's do that. So next week we will have the Gimmick versus Gimmick, and we will review In Your House 5, and then we'll probably have a pop culture segment, but we'll come up with that on the fly.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Aaron, do you have anything else to say to our listeners before we sign off and I let you go to sleep because you have to work in the morning?
Nope.
All right. Which means Aaron has to work in the morning. We want to thank you for joining us here on the We Can't Wrestle podcast, ladies and gentlemen. As always, we appreciate your support, and we'll see you next week on the show. Thanks, wrestling fans.